series, which is we have done almost 200 webinars so far. And as you know, that the think tank is focused on research-based policy advice. It is from October 2018 that the think tank started, and by about 2020, we launched the webinar series. The objective of the think tank is basically to discuss the contemporary economic issues and based on solid research, make recommendations. That's exactly what we did with the webinar series. We bring in experts, the best from across the world, to come and speak of contemporary issues, not only in India, even those which are important from the angle of the global economy. We have been very fortunate as we started. We wanted to have a blend of experts from India and abroad, and we have been successful in doing that. We have had two Nobel laureates come and speak to us. Mike Spence is coming in April. Professor Nanak Kakwani, who's an expert on poverty, lives in Sydney, is also going to be speaking to us in April. Under the G20, we were very fortunate to do a series, 10 webinars in the new international economic order, and we also did on female empowerment. The issue which is now burning and extremely important in the country is agriculture sector. Last few years, attempts have been made to reform it, but somehow the success has not been so easy. Today, keeping all those issues in mind, we have invited Dr. S.L. Shetty, former advisor, Reserve Bank of India, founder director of EPW Research, to come and speak to us on a topic on which he did research, I think about 50 years ago. Very well accomplished research, very well-known economist of our country. To chair this session, we have invited Dr. Ashok Vishandass, who's the founder director of EGROW Foundation, to chair the session. We also have two panelists. Dr. Ashok Vishandass will, of course, introduce the main speaker and both the panelists. Dr. Ashok Vishandass himself has interest in sustainable agriculture, and he has worked extensively on agriculture, risk management, international trade, and commerce. He is the former chairman of CSCP in the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare at the level of the Secretary to the Government of India. He has rich experience of formulation of agriculture, price and non-price policies, nuances of fixing MSP of various agriculture commodities. As you know, MSP is again a very important topic these days. Today also there's an article in Times of India on MSSP by no less than Dr. C. Rangarajan. And it's a very important issue that we are facing in our country. With this, I would now like to invite Dr. Ashok Vishandass to take over the session and conduct the proceedings further. Dr. Vishandass, please.
Yes, thank you, Professor Charan Singh, and my sincere thank to you for giving me an opportunity to chair this session, which is very close to my heart. I welcome Dr. S.L. Shetty. He was the founder director of EPW Research Foundation for 16 years and is still associated with that institution. Prior to this, he was head of research department RBI. He is the author of seminal book Structural Regression in Indian Economy since the mid 60s. He is also author of Microfinance in India, which was published in 2012. He has published 75 published articles in the EPW and other publications, ranging from macroeconomics, agriculture economics, fiscal and monetary policy to money market dynamics and development issue and inequality. He has very rich experience. We are looking forward to hear you, Dr. S.L. Shetty. Our panelists include Dr. R.S. Deshpande. He has, everybody knows and he needs no introduction. But for the sake of protocol, I'm going to introduce him. Professor R.S. Deshpande retired as a professor and director of Institute of Social and Economic Change, Bengaluru. He was former National Fellow, Indian Council of Social Science Research. He was founding director of Bengaluru-based Dr. B.R. Ambedkar School of Economics. Earlier, he was also architect of Karnataka Agriculture Policy 2006 and chaired many policy bodies in agriculture sector of Karnataka state. Dr. Deshpande has authored 22 books and more than 120 research papers. He was visiting professor to University of Ottawa, University of Paris, University of France, and many others. He was a consultant to World Bank, Asian Development Bank, Land Equity Australia, and so on and so forth. List is in fact very long. He is a recipient of many awards and gold medal. He is fellow of Indian Society of Agriculture Economics and fellow of Karnataka Science and Technology Academy. Now I turn to Professor R.S. Ghuman. Professor Ranjit Singh Ghuman is currently Professor of Eminence at Guru Nanak Dev University, which is very prestigious university in Amritsar. Earlier, he has been Nehru Chair Professor of CRRID, Chandigarh, Professor and HOD, Head of Departments of Economics, and Dean College Development Council at Punjabi University, Patiala. He also had been on academic and administrative bodies of various universities and a special invitee member of Sixth Finance Commission of Punjab and chairman. MSP Committee of Punjab Government, Development Economics, Rural and Agriculture Development, Water Sector, Indo-Pak Trade, Drug Menace, and Human Rights are some of his special areas of interest. His latest publication is Dynamics, Drug Addiction and Abuse in India by Routledge, UK in 2024. So today's topic is tax burden on farm and non-farm income sector. This is very interesting subject. Now many people have lot of conception, perspective. Some are very relevant, but for many regions, tax distortion takes place, and many people, many economists argue about the necessity of putting tax on agriculture, and some argue that farmers are in any case taxed, though it's implicit, not explicit. Now we have to understand one very important thing. Our agriculture sector has been increasing in terms of its production and value also. But the point remains, when the agriculture policy was framed, many policy makers of mid 60s, 70s, even now until 2013, they thought if agriculture production increases, the benefit of that increased production will percolate down to the farmers. Though one part was true, the agriculture production increased. Just to give an example, the food grain production in 1951 was about 51 million ton. Now we are close to 325 million ton. So that increase is taking place, but the farmer's income has not increased commensurately. So that hypothesis or the perception, if agriculture production increases, farmer's income will increase. That has the empirical evidence just belies that. So that hypothesis has been practically tested but not found true. That means that hypothesis is rejected. Now what to do? Now one important factor which really is a concern, a great concern. For instance, the agriculture, 45.5% of workforce of the India is occupied, is devoted to agriculture. It occupies about 60% of our land and uses 83% of our fresh water. Yet it gives, in terms of GDP, only about 15 to 16%. And if you arrange these data, the agriculture labor productivity is about 29% compared to non-agriculture. And now this piece of information, that how come agriculture sector, if it operates at that level of trajectory where the productivity or labor force is about 23 or 29% compared to non-agriculture sector, where we are heading. So these are the very important issue, and I'm sure our panelists will address those issues, and then we will give the concluding remark. I will give something, and then we'll open to the Q&A. Let me have the privilege of starting with the Professor R.S. Deshpande to give his or we will start with SL Shetty, Dr. SL Shetty, because his presentation is ready. So I will request Dr. SL Shetty to start, and then we'll have the Professor R.S. Deshpande and Professor Ghuman thereafter. So Vivek, you have put the PPT up, Dr. SL Shetty on. Let us start. So over to Dr. SL Shetty, floor is yours.
Vivek, it is not rolling. Can it roll? The note is not rolling.
Can you see the note?
Yeah, note is seen. Note is in front of me, but it is not rolling.
No, Vivek will keep on changing.
Okay, yes. Mr. Chairman, you have hit the nail on the head.
Thank
You
you.
have made some very interesting observations on the issues faced by the agriculture sector today. Mr. Chairman, I begin my presentation. Mr. Chairman, the august members of the panel, and also my actual colleagues in the Reserve Bank of India and Fund. At the outset, I wish to convey my profound thanks to Dr. Charan Singh and through him to the EGROW Foundation for providing me with this opportunity to present before such an august audience the substance of what I did 50 years ago as a PhD dissertation, now published verbatim without any revision, is an old book. I also wish to confess what transferred me, what inspired me to publish the book now. It was what Dr. Govinda Rao, an outstanding public finance expert and former director of NICFP, who also had written a forward for the book, revealed to me at an informal chat I had with him some time ago. Dr. Rao said that when he was a young scholar, it was Dr. Titi Ratnawala, then director of the Department of Economics, University of Bombay, for guidance in undertaking research. Professor Ratnawala took out a copy of this thesis of mine, kept in his bookshelf, and told the Dr. Rao that a PhD thesis should be like this. That made me realize the folly of not getting the thesis published earlier, even though the Indian Council of Social Science Research approved a grant of 3,000 rupees for publication at that stage. For personal reasons, I could not publish it. Therefore, I do feel somewhat uncomfortable talking today about a book that had economic and public background of 5 years old. there has been considerable transformation in the economic system. Agriculture share in national income was about 48 to 50%, and the population development was equally large, much above 50%. Today, the share of the sector in national income has dwindled to 18 to 19%. Though labor force dependency has come down, but very slowly. It's about 46 to 47%. Nevertheless, many scholars have said that apart from the methodology of the book employed, what is contained in the book has some relevance even today. The study starts with the basic hypothesis that the agriculture sector in India is under-taxed. The entire edifice of 344 pages of the book is built around this simple hypothesis. The most onerous task has been one of building statistical series on myriad concepts involved in the construction of the edifice. These statistical series led to the period covered in the book, 18 years from 1951 to 1968-69, the first 3-year plan period and the subsequent 3 years of internal plans. In the introductory chapter, the study plunges into addressing the then widely held view that the most important limiting factor in the initial development of an economy is the agriculture sector. And taxation is the only device to siphon off those surpluses into promoting overall economic development. In this respect, I quote the series of secondary sources of extensive research done to unravel the historical experience of two major nations, namely Japan and Russia, where rapid industrialization was financed by surpluses compulsorily extracted from their agriculture sectors. Though diverted vertical exportation ideology, both the countries adopted exploitative method of extracting agriculture surpluses. The study concludes that overall, the socio-economic and political conditions in democratic India are quite different, and those historical experiences are almost impossible from being adopted here. But the study argues that the crucial role of agriculture in the industrialization process cannot be denied. That in the context of India and developing countries in general, adequate collection of tax revenues from the agriculture sector is also linked to the basic theory of mobilizing agriculture surpluses for industrialization. It was said that as the agriculture sector formed the largest sector of the economy at that time, it must bear a substantial cost of development. But in essence, the evolution of the taxation system in India is such that democratic society like India, the mass-based unorganized farm sector gets neglected in the first of mobilization of resources. In reforming this process, the basic issue boils down to achieving some intersectional equity in tax burden. As we find earlier, the foundational theme addressed in the book relates to this intersectional equity in taxation, as it involves seeking answers to a number of questions with the help of empirical data, and that in turn involves the quantitative estimation of number of basic concepts. We enumerate what are the basic concepts which are reviewed here. There are 4 important concepts for which detailed empirical analysis for the 18th period covered in the book has been done. After the introduction, the next 4 chapters of the book extensively deals with these 4 concepts. They are taxable capacity. For it is prevailing capacity to pay taxes that determine the scale of tax. Each sector's capacity much lower than income. second, incidence of taxation or tax burden. But it has been separately estimated for farm and non-farm sectors, leading to a close examination of the sector's burden capacity ratio. Third, benefit of public expenditure, both development and non-development, distributed among the two sectors, weighing the burden benefit ratio, that is, examining whether the relative tax burden for a sector is more than the relative expenditure benefit. This relative concept has been uniformly applied in the form of a measure for non-farm sector divided by the measure for the farm sector. And the fourth one is inter-class incidence of taxation. While this is the taxation issue, inequality income distribution becomes very important. Therefore, the book addresses the question of inter-caste incidence of taxation based on three measures. One, the fact made an original attempt to work out the patterns of income distribution within sectors, distribution of tax burdens among different income groups, and juxtaposing income distribution and tax burden, analyzing the inter-class equity in tax burden. But now, when I deal with individual concepts, I wish to be brief because I wish to cover the whole thing within a period of 40 minutes. The first one is taxable capacity. Concept of taxability is a tricky concept, and many economists have addressed the issue in diverse ways. A common tendency through all of them is that the concept of taxable capacity can be measured by the subsistence, that is, the excess of income or the minimum subsistence needs of the concerned population. The literature also provides for phrasing the concept in a dynamic setting in time series form. This involves making alert for two elements. One is a permanent rate of increase in the minimum consumption requirement for any organized society, aimed at certain improvements even in minimum standards of living. Second, a minimum investment necessary for protecting the existing production process. After dealing with the conceptual issues and entire issue of putting together data on taxable capacity, minimum consumption requirements, and all that, when I go to the end of this section, the results. Further, please. Further down, please. Further down. I summarize the results. Further down. These are all data presented for your information, year-wise. Finally, I come to the results, the concluding part of the section. In this, If you go down the last phrase, please, of the section, further down. Yes, the results. To briefly set out the results, whether the nutritional norms and the national sample survey data on consumption of food grains in terms of quantity, which are registered for possible errors in over-reporting, estimates of minimum consumption requirement for income terms, per capita terms for farm and normal sectors have been attempted. This average minimum consumption requirement for persons has been uniformly applied to BJP for the entire population. But I make a correction in my thesis on this idea of the minimum consumption requirement and the derivation of the taxable capacity. Because in reality, there is a consumed number of households in each sector whose actual consumption is less than the minimum, the dividing line, minimum consumption requirement. Because of inequality in the distribution income, there is deficit in the actual consumption from the norm required in respect of some households. Beg your pardon? Is there a question for me, Mr. Chairman?
No, just carry on. Somebody had unmuted. Just carry on.
Yeah. I'm saying there are a number of households who do not have full consumption equivalent to the minimum consumption requirement. Therefore, while deriving the figure of taxable capacity, we have to be careful. Now, what I do, I give you this surplus income minus minimum consumption requirement. I make an adjustment. I do that in this figure. Please give the figure, please. Yeah. It has gone down. Can you go up a little, please? Vivek? Can you go up a little, please? Yes. Now, this is very crucial. This is an important aspect of the thesis. We describe how this correction has been introduced. Now, we have a fox. Now, in this, A, G, D is the income line, income distribution line. The A, B, C, D is the total income. The state line EF represents minimum consumption requirement. That is the dividing line. What happens is that households up to G consume less than the minimum consumption requirement. Their income is less. Then from G onwards, the income is more. But they are a lower level minimum consumption requirement. Therefore, the surplus here should be only GDF and not GDF minus JGE. Because minus JGE is the deficit in the four household consumption. And that adjustment cannot be made. Therefore, I'm arguing the surplus of technology is considered as the potential surplus. And with this estimate, adjusted for minimum required certain, we get the estimate of taxable capacity. Now, as a result of this study, the taxable capacity will move forward. The table is 5 is important, but let the people can. The taxation capacity turns out to be a small portion of sectoral income. The current version, which we have done because of deficit in the consumption of the poor household, the current estimate of taxable capacity comes to be only for different families from 23% to 28%. For the farm sector and 52% to 54% for the non-farm sector. These are the percentage of sectoral income. In the annual farm period, there was substantial increase in agricultural income, and therefore the taxation capacity of the farm sector improved in that period to 46%. And in the case of non-farm, it remains at 54%. This is the interesting revelation of this section. Once we come to terms with the estimate of the taxable capacity, we now move to the estimating relative tax burden in the two sectors. For this, we look at all individual taxes carefully and apportion them between agriculture, between farm and non-farm sectors, based on various norms which are described in the book. I don't want to go into the details here. Both direct taxes, also indirect taxes, they have been systematically studied and apportioned between the two sectors. I skipped the data contained in the book. Now, summary of that is what it is. What we have done, all these observations in the estimate of relative tax burden put together show there are wide variations in the intersectoral tax burden. While the financial tax burden on the farm sector range between 9 and 35, which is the 88 period, that of the non-farm sector range between 38 and 43, much higher for the non-farm sector, understand. As source of income, the contribution of farm sector range between 5 to 10%, and that of the non-farm sector range between 9%, 19%. Leading to it that the burden of the non-farm sector is obviously higher. But when we relate them to taxable capacity, we found that the tax burden as percentage of taxable capacity in the farm sector has been higher than in the non-farm sector, except during the annual farm period. That is the 3 years of the study where agricultural income was useful significantly. Therefore, we come to the conclusion that it is unrealistic to consider income as the determinant of taxable capacity without making allowance for minimum consumption needs of the population. Besides, taxable capacity is more effectively determined by the degree of inequality in income. The average of sectoral income worked out per person hides to some extent the potential surplus which the sector concerned is capable of generating. The current estimates of taxable capacity attempt here take into account both the basic content needs as well as the different degrees of inequality in the distribution of income. Therefore, the summary this is the under-taxation for regional agriculture. And the other way of examining of the taxation farm sector is to examine the capacity now. At the end, I give the summary. Formal incidence of overall taxation for farm sectors have been estimated for all the 18 years. The sustainable substantive part of surplus is centered around the juxtaposition of ratios of relative tax burden with the ratios of relative taxable capacity. Now, when that is done, you will find here the relative capacity, that is non-farm sector capacity divided by farm sector capacity, relative capacity is much higher in all the periods for non-farm sector as compared with farm sector. And the burden for the non-farm sector as compared with the relative capacity is lower. Relative burden is lower for the first three farm phase, first plant, second plant, and third plant, for first 15 years. For the annual farm phase, though, because of significant improvement in agricultural incomes that is reported before that period, the situation got reversed. That the relative capacity for the non-farm sector turned out 2.1 as compared with the 4.14 relative burden. This is based on market time. And that is so, even with regard to aggregate estimates, not only per capita, aggregate estimates of rupees cost, estimates of relative capacity, and relative burden. It is therefore unrealistic to consider the dilemma of taxability without making a besides taxability, more effort the income and the average of sectoral income worked out for the heights. The current estimate of taxability attempted here take into account both the basic consumption needs. The more significant conclusion emerged from the substantive analysis that made here that during the first third phase, relative tax burden ratio has always been less on the farm sector than the non-farm sector. In fact, that if the relative taxation is considered yardstick to compare relative incidence of taxation, the burden taxation the burden borne by the farm sector does not appear to be inadequate as compared with its capacity. the only section of exception is the annual plan period. But am I, Mr. Chairman, am I crossing the limit? Am I crossing the time limit?
Yeah, Professor Shetty. Yeah, because we have spent 45 minutes and there are two more panelists. If you can wind up in another 1-2 minutes, I will appreciate.
Fine. Then I only say that the study has made a comprehensive analysis of the expected revenues divided by farm and non-farm sectors, and it has also made an attempt to work out to what extent there can be extra taxation that is possible to be derived from the farm sector, and I have come to the conclusion that it will be very minimal, because the a major issue that comes up in the study of income distribution is that the top income bracket earning 25,000 rupees and above are very negligible in the farm sector. Although the 80% of the taxation in the non-farm sector comes from the top income bracket earning 25,000 rupees above. Such households are very few in the farm sector. Therefore, the ability to mobilize additional taxation from the farm sector is extremely limited. That is the one conclusion that I come to, but that does not mean that we should not try to get some income, tax income from the farm sector wherever is available. It will be small, but nevertheless, the state has got to identify them and mobilize them. I have given some provisions, some suggestions in the book, and with this, sorry, I conclude halfway. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. S.L. Shetty. I know the constraint of time, but whatever you said, it was wonderful and very insightful. I think there may be many questions, but that will take up in the last. So now I turn and request Professor R.S. Deshpande to enlighten us with his considered view, which we are looking forward. Professor Deshpande, floor is yours.
First of all, I must thank. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah,
you are.
yes, you.
Okay.
Yes, Dr.
I must thank Professor Shetty for this wonderful thesis bringing in front of us. And when I went through the manuscript, I really feel that the today's students of PhD should be ashamed of the kind of work that they do and the constraints that were there during Professor Shetty's time, with which he churned the whatever available data for the first, second, third plan and the annual plans. He got to a very significant things which at that time, and I repeat, at that time, were quite important. Because those were the days when people were thinking, and if you recollect, that Ken Raj committee was formed for the agriculture taxation. And Professor Ken Raj has recommended agricultural holding tax, which was something at that time not very conducive, for the reason that at that time we should have thought of one thing, that how do we promote agriculture as fast as possible, and if at all taxation has to be done, it has to be bracketed like direct taxes. Raj did not get into that, and this is what was pointed out by C.H. Hanmantrao later. But coming to Dr. Shetty's work, wonderful indeed that he found the relative benefits of development expenditure and the burden of taxation. I would rather today would say that it cannot be a burden, but rather it's a reverse burden on the farmer of taxation, through various government schemes. But then I will come to that later on. What Dr. Shetty has brought out is the benefit ratio of the development programs in the first, second, third plan, about 3.22%, 4.09, 3.87, 3.67 per capita. And this is something compared to burden ratio of taxes, 3.68, 3.70, 4.09. So in fact, the later plans, that is third plan and the plan holiday, it started increasing, which means that we were going, according to his computations, we were going a little bit regressive way on agriculture, if at all the burden was higher than the burden of benefits, because that's the basic thing of taxation, that the benefit approach. Now, in the earlier estimates of relative tax burden, he had got into direct and indirect taxes across the sectors and justifies it. I liked very much at that time, and I can endorse that at that time when the calculators were also not there and you have to multiply by hand, Dr. Shetty has computed with a large amount of data, and this was also done in V.K. Rao's national income, large amount of data in 1934, hand calculation. Forget about that. Before that, Dr. Ambedkar, when he computed what is the uh, fiscal transfer from India to UK, all hand calculations, and therefore I salute this a great professor, Dr. Shetty, for such a wonderful work at that time. Maybe today we should rethink about it, for the reason that the things have changed over years. This is somewhere early 70s, it ended, 69 for that matter. Later on came Ken Raj report, and after that was Hanumantrau's defense in favor of the farmers, or rather opposing the Ken Raj report. He had taken it very strongly in the Economic and Political Weekly. Today, when we look at it, I think taxation of agriculture is a thing which needs to be looked very carefully, for the reason that, as it is, farmers have quite low income. Say, with the situation assessment survey of 1819 calculated it at 10,218 per hectare. This is something which is miserable. In fact, we pay a peon also much higher. We pay a errand fellow also much higher, who takes a Swiggy fellow or a person who delivers your courier. We pay much higher, whereas the farmer gets 10,218. There is some people who defend it in a way that farmer gets his food from his home. It's okay, agreed. But then income within that food, and Dr. Shetty calculated the consumption expenditure and the remaining income to be taxed. If at all that has to be done, possibly the farmer has to take from the government, and which is being done now, that a direct payment to the farm sector is being done. But there is one thing: 82%, 86% of our small and marginal farmers have income far less than 10,000 even, because 10,000 is an average income of the entire country, including all large and big farmers. There are farmers who obtain about 6 crores a hectare, and they get an income tax benefit. Now, this is something which is other side of the story. There are farmers, and the recent past, I located it and wrote many times. Recent past, a large number of farmers are quitting agriculture and selling off their lands to the white collared farmers, who are either in the government services or in the semi government services, purchase land in the villages or increase their land holding in the villages. Some of the states do not allow purchase of land by a non-agriculturist, and there was a famous case of a famous actor who has purchased land and he was non-agriculture, but then there was a lot of things were done. So also many politicians. Now what has happened is agricultural land has become a hiding place for the tax avoiders. The famous case of 6 crores per hectare is tax avoiding, and the person is a member of parliament, a responsible citizen of this country, a lawmaker of this country. And the similar kind of cases are umpteen number of them. So the 18% of the entire farming community is possibly ready for levying the tax, but 82% of the farming community need a support from the state. Today, do we have a case? I'll come to the end. Do we have a really case to impose agricultural taxation? I would say, if at all we have to, we have to. We should not, but if at all we have to, it should be different kind of classes by agricultural holdings, along with, if a cultivator, we define cultivator as the one who cultivates. We recently saw 5 million farmers have said that they are not cultivators in population census, because population census asks a question: are you cultivating? Which means, are you busy as a farmer? Person says, no, I am a professor. I am a professor. What is your profession? I am a professor. I am an IAS officer. I am a banker. But then when it comes to agricultural holding, the agricultural census records them as the agricultural holding, and therefore agricultural holdings have been increasing across the agricultural censuses. Cultivators have been going down across the population censuses. This is a dilemma which would really defeat the entire case of agricultural taxation, or build a case for agricultural taxation for those who earn higher income or in the higher income bracket from the agriculture sector. Dr. Shetty has made a very wonderful case. In fact, the theme of the analysis is that if at all you tax, and he says that the burden of taxation is about 4%, 3.68, 3.7 or 4.09%, which is about 4% on an average. It seems very small. 69, the figure was 4% of their income, and the figures are in hundreds. Income itself is in hundreds. Today, income in hundreds cannot be imagined. But taking the fact that it has to be calculated as a burden, and this burden should be there on the higher, and he says it, on the higher income classes or higher holding classes, and the holding size, where to fix it. Professor Khushro, in his thesis, and it's like Dr. Shetty's thesis, Professor Khushro's thesis was one of the wonderful theses on getting what is the economic holding. Now, below the economic holding, no taxation. But above the economic holding, yes, it should be the progressive tax to be levied on the farmers who otherwise do not self-cultivate. I think I should not speak more than that, but I would say that Professor Shetty's thesis is one such thing which today's research student should look into, where with lots of constraint, how one can bring out meaningful analysis with limited data and with limited computational capabilities. No computers were there. It was all hand done. I must salute this good senior friend of mine. He has a great love for me, and therefore I thought that I must talk today's function. I thank you so much for allowing me to participate. I should not take more time. If there is any time, I'll come back again.
Yes, thank you, Professor Deshpande. It was a wonderful observations, and your insights are very, very important for us, and we'll surely come back to you. Even I myself, I'm sure Charan will also have certain questions, and likewise, many audience will be looking forward for it, because this is very, very important for the economy. So we'll hold the question towards the end, but now let me turn to Professor Ranjit Singh Ghuman. Ranjit Singh, now floor is yours, straightway to you.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, let me thank Professor Charan Singh and the organizers, EGROW, especially for giving me this unique opportunity to be part of this webinar. Really, as Dr. Charan Singh said, the think tank is playing a wonderful role. And at the very beginning, the chair has summed up in a very crispy manner that agriculture production, especially food grains, have increased manifold, but farmers' income has not come. That is the crisis. And that is the crisis that long-term dynamics of growth, Kaldor-Kuznets dynamics, has partially been effective in India. As far as workforce diversification is concerned, that has been very limited, but share in GDP has been very high. Now, let me congratulate Dr. Shetty for doing such a wonderful work way back 50 years ago, which has future relevance, contemporary relevance, and I that this work must be replicated now because many policy changes, institutional changes, and many other crises in agriculture have worked, especially the impact of green revolution is yet to be captured in the way Dr. Shetty has captured the then prevailing situation. And farmer suicides in lakhs is yet to be captured. And there are so many other things. My friend Dr. Deshpande has very well brought out K.N. Raj committee, Hanumantharao's dissent and all that. I would not go into that detail. I would mainly focus on 2-3 things. One, that work is a sterling work and this needs to be replicated. But there are so many, the hypothesis still is very relevant. And Dr. Shetty has did not hold up that hypothesis, and hypothesis is agriculture sector is under-taxed. This was the hypothesis of his PhD thesis, and he himself rejected this hypothesis very correctly. Second is, what is there to tax? When your farmers are 80%, 86% of your farmers are small farmers, out of them 69 are marginal farmers, what is there to tax? That is a big question, and the policymakers, the government, all that must focus on that. That on the one side, lakhs of farmers have committed suicides. NSO study says 40% of the Indian farmers do not want to continue with agriculture. And my own study in 2018, my book from Cambridge on emerging water insecurity in India, when we asked this question to Punjab farmers, 80% in Punjab farmers of Punjab farmers do not want their children to be in agriculture. So when this is the situation, and when you are bringing farmers 3 formulas without taking farmers on board, and that is why farmers did not allow those laws to be implemented. And you see, even the current agitation is going on, and there are so many other issues, apprehensions of the farmers for continuation of MSP, for continuation of APMC and all that. They have their own apprehensions. I will not go into that detail, but I would like to draw attention to a couple of things. My observation is that this needs to, their data is very rich, and this data in the present context need to be revisited and compared with the contemporary situation and the future of agriculture in India, and particularly in the context when agreement on agriculture in the framework of WTO is going to be implemented. Yet it is on hold. Doha round has still not been concluded. But estimates of potential revenue from farm sector based on intersectoral equity and tax burden is very, very important chapter which Dr. Shetty has written. Now, let me say with my apology to Dr. Shetty and his work that gap between non-farm and farm sector has decreased from first to third plan and annual plans. But who knows how did this gap has behaved afterwards? When so many changes have been taken, the planning commission has been winded up, Niti Yog has come, and the role of planning commission is not there. So this needs to be. Second is absolute taxable capacity of the agriculture sector. Capacity is so much low than the non-farm sector. I think this again needs to be verified, and the phenomena of shifting non-farm income to farm income and thereby lowering the tax liability is again a very, very serious issue which R.S. Deshpande has given a passing reference. But I must say, I must add that the shifting of non-farm income by big and resourceful persons, including politicians, bureaucrats, and so many others sections of society, is a serious problem. And under-taxation of maybe due to host of exemptions of the non-farm income is also very serious phenomena. And this needs to be kept in view when we talk of taxing the agriculture sector. The the entire sectoral area share of GDP and tax structure have withstood sea change, have experienced sea change over the period of time, and this also needs to be there. And shift in economic policy since 1991 has also impacted agriculture sector, but still this study is very valuable study and needs to be updated whenever by some other scholars. My submission is that instead of so many committees have been there, so, many times this issue has come in the public discourse. But one serious question is why income tax is not being imposed in agriculture. There are two sides of the coin. One, there is hardly any much surplus income, and the cost of tax collection may be more than the tax itself. Second is there is a section of people who do not want it to be taxed because they shift their non-agriculture income to the agriculture sector. So I submit that instead of imposing income tax on agricultural, purely on agriculture income across the board, I have two suggestions. One, tax the agricultural income of non-farm households by clubbing the farm as well as non-farm income. This needs to be done at the earliest possible so that tax income can be increased. And though you shift their black money to the agriculture sector for tax exemption, that needs to be captured. Second, identifying and tax only rich farmers if they are having enough accessible income from agriculture sector. That also needs to be there. And third is the untargeted subsidies to the rich farmers, including all those 5 million farmers, absentee landlords, that must be curbed. And even they are enjoying the interest rate subvention and all that, that needs to be checked rather than imposing across the board income tax or agriculture holding tax, etc. So recommend at the end, I would like to say that recommendation made on the basis of 50 years ago need to be reasonably reviewed at the substantial changes have taken place. and MSP regime, particularly the impact of green revolution probably was not that much there when this study was conducted. So at the end, I would like to say that much water has flown through the river since then, and there are so many technological and institutional changes have taken place, including the new economic policy. So this needs to be updated, reviewed, and this agriculture income tax or holding tax needs to be given very serious thought, because this is an issue which is raised time and again, and without any substantial the logic behind it. So I really appreciate the efforts of the organizers, and also the work done by Dr. Shetty, and the comments in the beginning again, that was wonderful comment, that farmers are by the chair, that farmers are not experience rise in income, but their food production has increased manifold, and probably this needs to be checked, that if there is something, the burden of sharing poverty and the burden of keeping food inflation and other inflation, is it entirely to be shifted to farmers, or is it to be shifted to other things? So this needs to be done at the earliest possible. This question needs to be tackled, and issue of MSP is a very serious issue, particularly effective implementation of MSP on the 23 crops, and as well as government intervention when prices fall below a very serious level. So once again, I'm grateful to the organizers for giving me this chance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed, and it deepened our understanding by the three very pioneering panelists, Dr. S.L. Shetty, Professor Deshpande, and Professor Ghuman. All gave a very interesting and academically rich presentation. There are certain issues, because this is such a serious issue that one cannot resolve the issue in one webinar, but certain points are really they pass through my mind, and which are very close, because I have also feel very strong about certain issue. Now, farmers are poor, and poor are not poor by choice, because of, we say, inaccessibility to the opportunity. And I am reminded of Nobel laureate Schultz. He says Indian farmers are poor but rational. Now, what prevents them? If Indian farmers are rational, why they are poor? Because of, obviously, the lack of opportunity. So we have full empathy with the farmers, and they have done a great job for the nation. Now, certain issue come to my mind straightway. Now, this taxing the farmers is, many authors argue you should exempt the poor tax. They are not rich, they don't have the propensity to tax. Now, I fundamentally agree. The tax should be such as if you are taking out the nectar from the flower. So you take the nectar from the flower, but allow it to blossom. Having said that, if farmers are poor, by definition, they will be excluded from the tax, because income tax is on tax income. Doesn't matter whether it's from agriculture or non-agriculture. So if poor is in non-agriculture sector, he is also exempted, because there is certain threshold beyond. If you are below that threshold, you are automatically excluded. So that we have to keep in mind. So it doesn't matter whether he is a small farmer or a certain category of holding, or this for income tax purpose, that perhaps does not matter. That is my understanding. And second, before we recommend something, we have to see whether it is constitutionally permissible. Now, let me see the Constitution of India. the schedule 7, there are 3 lists: list 1, list 2, list 3. List 1 deals with the subject union subject, list 2 state subject, and list 3 concurrent subject. Now in the list 1, entry 82 says the union, that means the government of India, can tax on income other than the agriculture income. So to my mind, as per the Constitution of India, government of India is not empowered to tax on income from the agriculture. That should be very clear. And in the list 2, entry 46 says that tax on agriculture income is within the jurisdiction of state government. So because of political and other reasons, vote bank or whatever you name it, only the state government can impose tax on income, not the income tax authority of the Central Board of Direct Tax under the Ministry of Finance, Government of India. They are not allowed to tax. So that argument is for academic purpose, but we have to extend our academics to the level of feasibility, whether it's possible theoretically. To my mind, that is not theoretically possible. And third point, according to me, is Professor Deshpande was very polite. He says that because of hiding of the income. To me, I will go a step further. It's not hiding. It's a unearned income is being parked in the name of agriculture. So he is more polished, perhaps, and I salute him for this purpose, hiding. But basically, most people, they are buying the agricultural land, and unearned money is being converted into number one, what is called. So these are the issue which we have to delve with. And before we open the floor for the question, I would request I would request my colleague Professor Charan Singh to, if he has any question, then you can kill up my point at his point, and then take whatever instance you take. So, Professor Charan Singh, I would request you to give your comments or questions or suggestions. Over
Thank
to
you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Ashok Vishandass, because we had to cut Dr. Shetty in between due to paucity of time. With Dr. Shetty's permission, I want to read 2 things from the material that he has shared. The first is the main hypothesis and his research. He mentions the significant result of the present study is that the thesis of under-taxation of the farm sector vis-a-vis the non-farm sector, strictly viewed from the principle of equity, is found to be exaggerated, at least insofar as the first 15 years of planning are concerned. I think it was very, very bold of Dr. Shetty to have come out with this conclusion, and the fighter that he is, it now shows up that his research 50 years ago was so solid that he could so confidently talk about it. The other thing, and there's a paragraph I'm reading from his work, which I think is very, very relevant in the contemporary times, is, and then I'll pose my 2 quick questions. Reporting is, I'm reading from his material, reporting is based on tax morality, and there is no reason to believe that, in this regard, the farm population are less dependable than the non-farm population. To the extent tax morality is a function of factors like literacy and the capacity to keep farm financial accounts, it is conceivable that the farm population in India today are less efficient in tax reporting than their counterparts in the other sector. Here, there are 2 factors which appeal to be reasoning, and I think these are very good. And I'm reading from his material. First, ironically, it is greater literacy and knowledge of tax laws that is mainly responsible for the underreporting of incomes among the non-farm population. Ironically, it is greater literacy and knowledge of tax laws that is mainly responsible for the underreporting of incomes among the non-farm population, particularly those small-scale businessmen, traders, and merchants, in whose case there is considerable tax dodging. Secondly, a phenomenon likely to be true of illiterate peasantry is that there is some cause for suspecting that poor records, instead of leading to understatement of income, often result in over-reporting. It is thus conceivable that poor farm households in their accounts omit more expenses than they do of their gross income. I think these are very good insights, contemporary even today for all of us. Now, I have a quick question. In my understanding, and this has been mentioned by all the speakers, in my understanding, the terms of trade, quote unquote, terms of trade, have gone adverse in the agriculture sector. To illustrate, a clerk who was earning rupees 10 an hour in 1970 is probably earning rupees 100 an hour today. While the farmer who was earning rupees 10 an hour at the same time in 1970s is only earning rupees 40 today. So the differential is emerging over a period of time. And what is the view of Dr. Shetty as well as the two panelists want to react? My second question is, we all want the income levels to go up, and it's very rare to get such experts in one place as we have been luckily assembled here today. Issue is how to increase or how to double the income of the farmers, if there are any ideas going forward. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vishandass.
Thank you. Now, I would request all three panelists to give their suggestions or their answer to the questions and the issues flagged very quickly. So first to Dr. Shetty, then in the order in which they spoke.
Mr. Chairman, I am happy that all the three speakers have, by and large, made positive observations on the one observation that I have made. I am thankful to them. Mr. Chairman, I also feel guilty that in my presentation, I have left out a number of interesting revelations relating to income distribution between farm and non-farm sectors. The question of the data will give us answers to the questions that we pose with regard to the role of the farmers in the country. I'm very happy that the Charan Singh has brought out those two observations which I have made. In that particular chapter of mine with regard to income distribution and tax burden by income groups contains such interesting data and revelations. I'm sorry I have missed that. I am grateful to Dr. Charan Singh for pointing that out. Now, coming to two questions that Dr. Charan Singh has raised. One is how to increase incomes of farmers. The second one was, I don't know, I'm sorry, the first one I missed. Dr. Charan Singh, can you just repeat that question, first one?
Well, the point that I was making is that we all understand that there has been an increase in the income of the whole country, but that of the farmer has been far less than that of a person staying in the farm area itself, in the rural areas. So the complaint that comes is the clerk who was my counterpart in 1970s, his income has increased from rupees 10 to rupees 100, whereas as a farmer, my income has only increased despite MSP or whatever, my income has only increased from rupees 10 to rupees 40. So the income differential is emerging in the rural areas. How do we tackle that? MSP is probably not the only answer, probably should not be the only answer. And the second, of course, as you rightly observed,
Yes, that is challenging. It is challenging. The issues are ticklish issues. The question is that for farmers, income is a function of their physical assets, landholding. Landholdings are so unequally distributed that bulk of the over 80% of the farm community has a very limited shares in landholdings. They're all small and marginal farmers. They will continue to face this. The issue, an answer which I had written somewhere when the issue came up, was that we must legalize tenancy. You know, the bulk of these farmers, when they give a tenancy, the banks don't give them loans because tenancy is not legally recognized, except for a couple of states. Throughout the country, tenancy is not recognized. One method by which the larger farmers can take tenancy and improve their agriculture income is to allow tenancy legally. Once that is done, then they can take loan again. That and therefore, in other words, some of the institutional changes of this type are required because it's a major issue of inequality in landholding in the country. That's one thing that struck me as important. And that answers both the questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are there other questions to be answered?
Yes, sir. Now I think we request Professor Deshpande to give his considered view on the certain issues flagged. Professor Deshpande, I don't know whether he is on this. Yeah, his name appears in the parties in the list, but I don't know whether he is able to hear. Until he revert, may I request Professor Ghuman to give certain comments or observations which the issues on the issues we flagged.
Thank you, Chair. In fact, this is true that terms of trade have gone against agriculture. Everybody admits it. But nothing is being done to address that issue. Only thing is sometimes Fasal Bima Yojana, sometimes Pradhan Mantri Nidhi Saman. That's all. Or sometimes debt issue of debt or debt debt retirement of the farmers, that is also there. But real issue is that employment in agriculture is shrinking over the period of time. And when Dr. Charan Singh talks of per unit earnings in agriculture and per unit earnings in non-agriculture sector, probably there lies the problem, crux of the problem, that when you do not have all year employment in agriculture, then probably your per unit of time income will certainly come down. And there is another issue in it, that disguised unemployment is also very, very high in agriculture. Uh, in the census or in a NSSO, it may have been captured that person is working as agriculture worker, cultivator, or worker, but actually there is a serious proportion of disguised unemployment. And third is that growth rate, trend growth rate of increase in income per hectare is decreasing. I have worked on it way back in 2000 also. I did a paper on it on Punjab agriculture, and per hectare trend growth rate has been on the decline. Though income has been increasing, but per hectare. Then cost of agriculture is increasing. So certainly, and then there is a very, very non-farm income per unit of time is certainly there. Though regarding the second question, how to increase and double the farmers' income, I will come later, but I will like to share one Ramesh Chand's paper of EPW, appeared in EPW in 2017, where he says that even the non-farm rural non-farm employment is being captured by the urban people, not from the rural people. So employability issue is there. Lack of employment in the rural non-farm sector for agriculture again is there, and transition of agriculture workforce to non-agricultural employment is also a serious issue. As regards the in doubling or increasing the income, probably one can say that either make surplus workforce in agriculture employable in non-agriculture sector, which is not happening over the period of time, and probably the surplus workforce is becoming casual, low paid workers in non-agriculture sector, and there also they do not find employment around the year. So either shift workforce from agriculture surplus workforce. uh, I do differ to some extent, though I written in EPW in 2015 that MSP is solely is not the reason and not the solution for farmers' crisis or agricultural crisis, but it can certainly enhance their income for some time, though it's not a permanent solution, because marketable surplus with the large number of farmers is very, very low. But processing, value addition, and employment generation, this can help. And unfortunately, this is not being promoted. And over mechanization is in certain states is also an issue. So this is my submission that, and also the number of marginal and small farmers. If you look at the agricultural census from way back 70 to 2015 and the latest, you will find that their number has increased. So there is marginalization of the farmers. And my submission is that instead of focusing on agriculture as a whole, we need to focus on marginal, small, and semi-medium farmers, especially. And along with that, we will have to focus on micro and small enterprises also. That can also help in raising marginally some income. But certainly the issue is very, very serious. I do not have the entire answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ghuman. Let me add few things on how to increase the farmer's income or double income. There are 2-3 things. Basically, market, if I can simplify, the farmers need only 2 things: to get the prices right and to get the markets right. If they get prices right, still it is necessary condition but not sufficient. If whatever they produce get only monetize only 50% of this or 60% of that, it is still they will not be happy, because remaining 40 is not integrated with the market, therefore it is not evacuated from there. In other words, in simple terms, it remains unsold. And why it happens? Because they are producing not in sync with the demand. Now, even the household consumption expenditure survey shows people are spending less on the cereals and food item, and they are moving to fruits, vegetable, and other things. So, having said that, so diversification is one thing, and more important, the agriculture land, or for that matter, any land, is inelastic, but activities on the on the land can be made more elastic, meaning thereby the same land can be used for multi-purposes. See, there are cases, for instance, in Gujarat, where the farmers were enabled to plant solar trees, and solar trees are planted at a height of about 12 feet, 500 solar trees in a acre. That means about 1250 in 1 hectare. It will not obstruct the photosynthesis. It will not obstruct the movement of tractor and other machinery. At the same time, farmer can produce new kind of clean energy, green energy, and India being signatory to the International Solar Alliance. So this will lead us to the clean energy also. This is one of few examples where farmers' income can be enhanced and doubled. Only thing, they need the initial hand holding. So with these few words, I'm not very sure whether Professor Deshpande had reverted or is he able to listen. Otherwise, we may take up another question, if any, and then we'll hand over to CEO. Perhaps he has some announcement to make. Professor Deshpande, are you able to listen to us? It seems he is not there. So, Professor Charan.
Yeah, I thought there is I was just making a suggestion, Chair, that if you agree, we can extend by a few minutes. Dr. Murari
Okay.
Behra had a couple of questions, and there is another expert in the audience, Professor Satish Verma. If you
Okay.
could invite him, and if he has some thoughts to contribute, I think that will be very good. And I think then we should close, because we have already exceeded the limit.
Right. So, Mr. Satish Verma, can you read the question?
Professor Satish is in the audience, and I know that
Am
he's
I
an
audible,
expert.
sir?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, I
Sir,
joined
go
quite
on. Carry
late.
on.
I joined quite late, so I was not able to, I may not be in a position to raise any question. But one point I wanted to raise was the point of diversification, which has been raised, is very, very important. Even Economic Survey Punjab is emphasizing it, that there has to be some diversification. Of course, there are certain other compelling factors also, which are being said time and again. But the most important other point which has been raised during this later part of the discussions, that, we need to, when we talk about the farm income, now doubling of farm income means doubling of the income from farming activities alone. We are not talking about the rural society as a whole. We are here talking about the farm income from farming activities. I think we need to concentrate here that how we can increase. Of course, some answer has been given. Of course, that also is in terms of the diversification of agriculture. When it has been said that they can go to this horticulture, or they can make multiple use of their land. Land is a fixed factor of production. Everybody knows about it. So, and the third thing which has probably may have been mentioned, but during the later part, I have not listened it from the experts. Uh, this is also being said that tomatoes are being sold by the farmer in the market, in the wholesale market at the rate of say 10 rupees, whereas the consumer gets the same at the rate of 40 or 50 per kg. Where goes this amount? Now this intermediation, now this is eating into the farmer's income. You know, this is true also. The story of the commission agent, everybody knows about it. There's nothing to elaborate. The point basically, and this has been raised by the farmers themselves also. The issue basically is that there are so many other ways where we can do it, and this is one of the glaring example that farmer is selling it to the middleman or in the wholesale market for rupees 5 or so, 5 rupees, 10 rupees per kg. Consumer getting paying 40. I do understand that probably we have a long intermediation layers. I do not know about it, but this point has been raised, and one more point has been raised by the farmers, which needs to be considered. That what we are doing about the fake seeds, fake pesticides, all those things are also happening, and they are deteriorating the conditions of the particularly of the poor, marginal, and small farm. They are the big victims of all these malpractices. I think the whole issue needs to be taken up on a much larger scale, on a much larger spectrum. And probably the issue, if we think that the issue can be solved by taking up a few measures, I don't think so. The whole nation must think about it, and this is really a very serious issue. Our farmers, as you have
I think,
Professor Charan
Miss Professor Satish, I think you made your
yeah,
point very clearly, and because
yeah.
paucity of time, I would request,
Yeah.
please.
I do
Now let us,
accept it. I
yeah,
do accept it, and
no,
stop
this,
here.
yeah, you please, yeah, thank you very much. Yes. Uh, we will have the time for only just one question. Any,
Dr.
okay, is
Murari,
there anyone
Dr.
else
Murari
want to,
Mehra,
Dr.
and Dr.
Murari? Then, if he not able to speak, Professor Charan, you can wind up and give the announcement, whatever.
Sure, I will do that. So let me thank you, Professor Vishandass, for chairing the session. And I must thank Dr. S.L. Shetty, my previous boss, for, after so many years, publishing his PhD, I thought, which is very, very good, and willing to share that research with us. And you could see with his advanced age, he's still full of energy and wants to contribute. I must thank Dr. S.L. Shetty to have agreed and made efforts and taken the trouble to share his research with us. I also want to thank both the panelists, Professor Deshpande and Professor Ghuman, to be with us and share their observations, which were so very important and made the whole discussion so interesting. Dr. Vishandas, I totally agree with you. As you know, I do surveys many times. Last Sunday, I was in Bagpat and I was speaking to a few farmers. One of the farmers there told me that, sir, in a bigha, I had grown carrots, and the price of the carrot had been given for the whole bigha. They had the trader had committed to take it at X price. To give me to make sure that I don't sell to anyone else, he had given me an advance of 0.3x. So That makes sense. You know, we all agree and we understand that. But he said he never came back either to collect the carrots or to pay me my 0.7 that was remaining. So I have left the carrot in the ground and done the tilling for my next seeding. I was so surprised and I asked him, how do you handle it? He said, look, I went underwater because the cost of cultivation I could not have recovered if I was plucking the carrot and selling it. The cost of carrot. But the trader continues to make his margin, and we, the consumers, continue to pay a normal price. None of us even are aware that carrot price for the farmer had dipped so deeply that he has not even plucked the carrot out, and he's gone around tilling his land with the same carrot inside. So I think there is something in the farm sector which we all need to think together and see what best we can do, because the farmer is exposed to nature as well as to the trader. And sometimes both can be very, very adverse. So I must thank you for chairing the session and making us all think about the farm sector in such a elaborate way. Next week, the presentation today, the recording will be available by noon tomorrow. And I'm requesting everyone to take advantage of this recording and share with friends and others, because it has been so educative a session today. 50 years back, an hypothesis there. Something has happened during the last 50 years, and seems that hypothesis may not hold true in terms of the judgment or the 15-year research that was concluded in saying that this probably is an exaggeration. Maybe now it is not. So I think time for another round of research. This recording will be available tomorrow to share with others. Next Friday, we are having another session on infrastructure financing by Dr. Pratap, a career Indian Economic Service officer, and much after his retirement from the Indian Economic Service. That book he has published is there in all places. Book reviews are there on infrastructure financing in India. We have requested him to come and speak to us because that's another area which is very contemporary to our country. So I would look forward to you again. Have a great weekend and looking forward to seeing you again next Friday. Thank you very much.
Dr. Charan Singh, I'm sorry
Yes, sir.
I did not present the whole issue before you. My note provides all the details. So that was when you give it to outside tomorrow about the session, kindly give the full note. Note contains all the details.
Sure, sir. We will do with the recording that is put on the website tomorrow. We will add the note also.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll do.
I feel, to that extent, I feel that did not do justice to a number of issues that were relevant for the subject. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm sorry it was a half done. But nevertheless, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. And I understand as a PhD, one has put in so many years, and after that, so many years on the same subject, any one of us would feel that given the time constraint, enough has not been brought up to the readers and to the participants. So I appreciate. We will add it in our recordings. All right. So with that, let's conclude for the day and look forward to your participation next week too. And look forward to your distribution of the recording after it is available tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.